Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to take a look at the brand new Vosteed Ankylo. At least that's how they pronounce it, so that's what I'm going with. You can get this one in 6 different variations, and this is a Kickstarter campaign that is live as we speak. I will have a link down in the description if you're interested in this. The early bird price is $149. Your regular Kickstarter price is $159, and I think they said the original price was like $169 or something like that. This is one of the reasons why I like Vosteed. They have now come out with 2 innovative things so far as a very new company, and the Ankylo has one of those features, and it is their new pivot lock, as you can see here, called their V-Anchor lock. And it's very interesting. If you didn't see my disassembly of this knife, definitely go check it out. But lots of cool stuff going on here. This is actually actuated and held in place by a pretty nice size magnet that I show in that disassembly, and just the whole working of it. For instance, this is the bearings that go in there. So nice and large track of bearings to keep it nice and smooth. And this is the lock bar before it gets machined down. It's this big old chunk of steel. And then it gets machined down into this. And this is your locking face. Detent ball right there. Like I said, go check that video out if you haven't already, and you can kind of see this better. I show it where it falls into place in here. And after seeing how stout this lock bar is, I'm pretty sure this thing can handle quite a bit of abuse. And for all my OG supporters, you're going to like this one because we take this one through the ringer, kind of like we used to do back in the day. And you're definitely not going to miss that. So what we have here is a medium-sized EDC knife at 7.75 inches long with a 3.18-inch reverse tanto blade of LMAX steel. They rock well at from 60 to 62, right where you want to be with LMAX. And I've already tested some of their LMAX, and I've been very, very satisfied. I like LMAX a whole lot because it takes a very aggressive 600 grit edge, which that's probably my favorite, especially for the types of things I cut. Not to mention this is highly corrosion resistant, and it's a fairly tough steel also. We're going to test that out as well. You do have a nice row of jimping that does grip the finger nicely, and you have a pretty stout tip because of that reverse tanto design. And being that you have that low tip that sits underneath the center line of that pivot, your belly's going to be very gradual up to that tip. So it's going to be a very versatile blade, easy to cut things on a flat cutting surface. In-hand cuts are going to be nice. It should work for just about anything you throw at it. You have a nice forward finger choil that is nice and comfortable. That's where I sat in the majority of my testing whenever I was holding it in hand. And we have a high flat grind that comes down to around 17 to 18 thousandths behind the edge. Now I think it's time to see what this bad boy can do. As usual, the knife came with an outstanding edge out of box, and this versatile blade should be able to handle everything that I do during my testing and more. And we will definitely be pushing this one to the limits. Not to the limits, we're not going to test it till it breaks or anything, but we're going to take this a lot further than we usually do or we have done in recently. But all my OG fans know what I'm talking about. We're going to take this one to that level. So now we're testing the ergos, and as you can see, I am choked up, very comfortable up there. I feel really locked in, and of course that edge is nice and crisp. It's wanting to bite deep, and you'll see me adjust my hands every now and again. It's mainly because I have a blister in the inside of my palm from doing a previous test, and that's just the story of my life because I do these tests so often. But yeah, comfortable, powerful, and a joy to use. Now that slight belly is going to make it perfect for cutting on a flat cutting surface, and we have that nice aggressive edge. I don't know what they sharpen these to, but it feels nice and toothy. But I will say this, I sharpened my Nightshade in LMAX after I did testing on it, and all I can say is wow. At 600 grit, and then stropped with 12 micron gunny juice, it has one of the stickiest edges that I've felt in a while. Very, very aggressive cutter, and what I like about LMAX is it holds onto that aggressive edge for a good while. Not quite as long as, say, M390, but you know, how most of these companies are heat treating the M390, I would say this one is going to outperform it. But it's also tough, and it has good corrosion resistance. So definitely a steel I like. Definitely, I'm not going to have to worry about it because mine's coated. But yeah, I'm doing mainly push cuts. You could also do the sawing motion cut or the pull through cut. Everything's going to work good. It's comfortable in that pinch grip. I'm not having to worry as much about sitting on that button, doing it right now, how you seeing me do it right here, because I'm kind of choked up farther. As you can see, it's easy to use that tip to do the drag cuts, and it's like a little scalpel up there. I had to do a third one just to feel it one more time. It was that comfortable. But yeah, nothing really gave it any trouble. Yeah, I was kind of worried that the coating might cause a little drag on the tubing, but I think because of the black wash finish, it's a lot slicker, so it didn't really cause any problems. I forgot to mention we did do 130 cuts with the 1/2-inch sisal rope. And in just a minute, we're going to get to the real fun, so y'all stay tuned. We're going to get into some more testing. I had to cut the sound off the first half of this because I had a fan on. You see my shirt blowing in the background. But so far so good. The coating's holding up really nicely. I kind of start using bigger and bigger pieces of wood. And don't try this at home. I'm a professional idiot, so I do this so you don't have to. This all could possibly void your warranty. You know, it's not something you really need to do with your knife. I just want to show if you had to, if you were in a situation, you know, the SHRT hits the fan and you had to rely on your folder, then yeah, then I want to show you it can handle it. And it can handle it pretty darn well. Not any movement whatsoever after doing all this stuff. Very, very impressed so far, and we'll see how it does all the way to the end. But we got some more stuff coming up, so you definitely want to stick around. Right through the knot. You can see that twist and turn in that. It should be pretty easy. It's just a small jumper cable. This will probably void your warranty, so don't do it. I do it so you don't have to. Yeah, no problem whatsoever. Chop, chop. Nothing wrong with that edge. This one's a lot tougher. This is like the house cable, 3 copper wires in there. I had some knives struggle on this big time. Chop clean through it. And let's see. Absolutely no damage to the edge. Don't even feel any damage to the edge. Let me look at it up close. I mean, maybe some glinting, but that's about it. I would expect that. And rock solid. Definitely don't recommend doing any of this stuff. You know, I'm playing with the house's money right here, so it doesn't hurt me any, but don't do this to your new knife. Absolutely no play. Very solid. I definitely don't think this is going to give it any trouble, but since it was able to baton and stuff like that, just figured I would do this. I got Kevlar gloves on. Just gonna spine whack it. Yeah, overstrikes. I mean, rock solid. Yeah, pretty darn tough. And I figured why not? This is for my OG supporters. This is some aluminum rod. We're gonna do 3 strikes into the aluminum rod with the apex. I'm gonna try to do it back here because I know what we have up here. Nice. I don't know if you can see this. Those are the 3 right there. Nice and deep too, you see that? And just as I figured, no problem. I hit it back here We got some small, rolling up here where I hit the wire that hard, but other than that, excellent job. Now, I have to say, I am very, very impressed with how strong this knife is while still being a good slicer. Yeah, I love that. So now let's take a look at the deployment and the action of this knife. This is one of those tri-way deployments. You have the blade hole, front flipper, and back flipper. Back flipper works really good, and the detent on this is very nice and crisp, and that has a lot to do with the way this lock's set up. So very nice, and then once you press that button, that is a free falling blade. Keeps your fingers out of the way of the blade path, so it's another safety measure. The front flipper works. I'm never good at doing the front flippers whenever they're in the front like that, unless I do the reach around, but I can do it. But I think my favorite is definitely the reverse flick, because that detent is so crisp and it comes flying out there. It's nice and smooth. You do have jimping that grabs hold of the finger on all the spots that you need it, here and here. And of course, if you want to do a slow roll, you could, or if you want to deploy it with that button, you could. I'm just trying to do it behind the camera. So very nice. You got endless possibilities when it comes to deployment if you like that. Now let's take a look at these handle scales. So we have an aluminum frame with a frag pattern on it. You can get this with a coated, non-coated blade with the gold accents. You got the gold pivot collar and the gold barrel tube for your lanyard. Your body screws are all T8. Your clip screws are T6, and I guess you could call it your pivot screws. These two are T6, and I get it because they're very small screws. I've taken this apart twice now and had no issues with it. And it's kind of interesting because you can kind of dial in your tension by screwing these down tighter or loosening them up some. So it just depends on how you want it. But I mean, I have them torqued down right now, and the action is nice and smooth. I find the action to be smoother when you have it torqued down where it's supposed to be. But like I said, if you want to see those internal workings, go watch my disassembly video. I show the entire inside of this knife. You do have a somewhat of a deep carry clip. I mean, you still have all this sticking out, but whatever. It's inset into the frame along with those screws. You got enough ramp in here. It goes in and out of the pocket nicely. I would have liked to see a flat spot underneath this pocket clip. Unfortunately, they don't have that. Now, it's not super aggressive, and it hasn't started tearing up any of my pants yet. The knife is tip up right-hand carry only. Even though you can actuate it left-handed, I'm not too sure why they didn't make it an ambidextrous knife, unless they offer a lefty version. I don't recall seeing that, but if I do find that out, I'll put it up here. Now you have some pretty thick slabs of aluminum plus a pretty thick blade there, and you have that partial liner on the bottom that houses that lock right there, and then on the top you also have a partial liner, and that's to house the little system in there to hold the bearing. So they pocketed out as much as they possibly could. Let's see how much this weighs. First in grams, let's just call it 138.6 grams or 4.88 ounces. Now, I didn't find it to be cumbersome or anything. I thought the weight was good. And just as I thought, the balance point is right where you want it to be, making it feel a lot more nimble in hand. After all the abuse I did to this knife, this thing has, when I say rock solid lockup on it. No movement, none left to right, none up or down. That is pretty darn impressive. And I mean, I beat on this thing. I mean, I hope y'all heard me hitting this with the baton and with that plastic maul. This thing is super solid. Now, one thing that I did notice, and I don't know if I talked about it during the cutting, but when you're cutting in a pinch grip like this, like I usually do when I'm cutting on a flat surface, you need to be careful where this thumb is. Now, let's just say a precaution, because it takes a good bit you have to depress that button a good ways down there to disengage this lock. But if you're holding on to it, you could possibly do that. But I mean, usually when I'm holding it like this, I'm cutting down into something anyway, so that really wouldn't be a problem. And it didn't happen to me at all during the cut test, but just something I wanted to mention. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Ontario Rat 1 and 2, Spyderco PM2 and Power 3. Next we have the Vosteed RS Chaos and the Vosteed Datsun or Datsun, whatever it's called. It's almost identical to this one. It's a little smaller than the RS Chaos. And lastly, we have the Vosteed full-size Thunderbird and the Vosteed Raccoon. It's a little smaller than the full-size Thunderbird, and it's a little larger than the Raccoon. Now for my nitpicks and complaints, if they don't have a lefty version, I do think they're kind of missing out here, being that the lock is ambidextrous. So, you know, I don't know. Like I said, they could. This is a prototype. They could have tapped it. I'm not sure. But if not, I think they are kind of missing out there. Also, if it's possible, I think T8 would have been great here. But that said, you probably don't ever really need to take this apart if you didn't want to. You could rinse it out with water, blow it out with compressed air, put your lube in there, and you should be fine. But other than that, if you're looking for an excellent work knife, hard use knife, or just a great EDC knife, then I think this is an outstanding choice. And I definitely, especially with the research and development it took for this new locking system and how well this thing performed with that LMAX blade, how comfortable it is, and of course the fidget factor. You gotta have that. At the early bird price of $149, I think that is an outstanding price. But even at the $159 price, I think it's still well worth it. I mean, I've tested knives well over this price tag, you know, doing just the batoning, and they failed on me. So, you know, this one held up like a champ, and it's solid. It's more solid than ever. So let me know what y'all think about the new V Anchor Lock. Do y'all want to see more knives with this locking system? And it looks like we're going to have the year of the pivot lock this year, huh? So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. Like I said earlier, if you're interested in picking up the Ankylo, I will have the link down in the description to the Kickstarter campaign. And I hope every one of y'all is having an absolutely wonderful day. I will see y'all on the next one. Hey!